Tuesdays are supposed to mind their business. Clock in, clock out, nothing fancy. So when my Tuesday put on heels and sprinted straight at me, I knew the week had other plans. I was in the garage arguing with a mower that sounded like it had swallowed a fork when I heard my daughter's laugh. Bright, high, ordinary, and then I didn't. It felt like someone shut off the sun. I looked up, and down the gravel lane I saw my 8-year-old, June, crumpled on the stones, and 4 varsity jackets making a wall around her. One of them, bigger than the rest, jaw set like the world owed him, choked up on a metal bat and drove it into the gravel next to her head so hard pebbles jumped. I ran, but my wife, Erin, was already moving the way trained people move. No wasted effort, no panic, just a straight line with a purpose at the end. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look angry. She walked right through those boys like she'd been invited and said, flat and cold, "Step away from my kid. Drop the bat." The big one was Chase Whitfield. His last name travels faster than the school bus in our neighborhood because his mom, Dana, runs the HOA and the PDA and, depending who you ask, your life. Chase tried to stare her down. His boys shifted behind him, tough until a grown woman treated them like a problem that could be solved. Aaron didn't blink. I said drop it. He did. Not because he suddenly found his conscience, but because he finally saw who he was talking to. Former Army medic, posture like a loaded spring. She wasn't negotiating. By the time I reached them, June's lip was trembling and there was a raw raspberry across her cheek. Aaron knelt, hands moving gentle and sure, checking pupils, checking the back of June's head, making a cocoon with her body. I looked up at Chase and his friends and all I could think was, you are just boys, but you are doing a man's kind of stupid. That's when a white luxury SUV slid to a stop like it owned the street. Dana Whitfield, hair flawless, sunglasses that could cut, stepped out. She took in the scene like a hostess discovering someone double-dipped the hummus. "Chase, sweetheart, what on earth is this?" He mumbled about an accident, about June tripping. Dana's smile tightened, like she'd decided which story we were going with. Her eyes landed on the bat, flicked to Aaron, and glided right past the truth. "I'm sure it was a misunderstanding. Boys will be boys." Aaron stood up slowly. "Your boy was standing over my daughter with a bat after he and his friends knocked her down." "I think you're mistaken," Dana said in that patient, poisoned way. "Chase wouldn't do such a thing. She probably tripped. Gravel is so unforgiving." I opened my mouth, then shut it. I knew that face. I'd seen it at HOA meetings when some poor neighbor tried to ask why the emergency assessment just happened to match the cost of the new stonework at Dana's house. It's the face of someone for whom rules are furniture. You arrange them to match your couch. We took June home. Aaron cleaned the scrapes, let June choose the unicorn bandage, and made space for tears that came in hiccups. Then June told us what happened. She'd been walking past them humming a movie song. They were ghost swinging bats across the path. Chase stepped in front of her and told her the road was for varsity, not toddlers. He didn't swing at her. He just nudged her with the end of the bat. A nothing nudge if you're a big kid on pavement. A lot of something if you're an 8-year-old on loose gravel. She went down. He planted the bat like a flag inches from her head. One of the other boys flicked pebbles at her face. They were laughing when Aaron arrived. Swallowing that story felt like swallowing glass. We went to urgent care, concussion protocol, photos, notes, because hope is not a plan. The next morning we were in Principal Alvarez's office, where the furniture gives the impression of order even when the room doesn't. He wrung his hands, said policy words about conflicting accounts, student privacy, investigations. We asked about cameras. He said they'd look. Then Dana materialized in the doorway like a storm in heels. "Goodness," she cooed. I heard there was a little confusion about my Chase. She had typed statements, 3 boys, 3 signatures, 1 plot line. They were practicing swings. June startled them. She tripped. They were concerned. And then the soft knife. "We're such proud supporters of the athletics program," she told the principal, her hand resting a moment on the framed photo of last fall's ribbon cutting. "We just want all our kids to feel safe." I could see the principal swallow. I could also see the donor plaque with the Whitfield family name 8 inches from his head. "Given the conflicting accounts," he said, "there isn't much more the school can do." We left with that corporate word, resolved, rattling around my skull like an insult. 2 days later, the first HOA letter landed in our mailbox. thick cream paper, and an embossed logo that pretended it came from Rome. Violation. Grass exceeds maximum height by 1/4 inch. There was a photo of one heroic blade of fescue beside a ruler like it had been arrested. Erin said nothing. She got a tape measure, measured 10 spots, took photos, and opened a folder on her laptop labeled Willow Ridge, HOA. Always start with documentation, she said. Then came a fine for a garden hose coiled non-uniformly, along with a close-up that looked like a crime scene for a snake. Then an unapproved ornament. A ceramic gnome June painted in art class that lives behind a rose bush. Someone had to step into our yard and kneel in the dirt to find it. $50 for whimsy. We paid, and every time we send a registered letter disputing it with receipts, timestamps, and photos, because sometimes the point is not to win the argument, it's to build the record for when the argument counts. The paper cuts were the point. Wear them down. Make them tired. Make them move. We didn't. We got ready. The night it stopped being petty, our porch light popped on at 11:06. Erin and I both tilted toward the window at the same time. There was an old conversion van across the street. No signage. 2 guys in jackets with a generic compliance patch that looked like somebody's cousin printed it on a home kit. One held a clipboard. The other had a small canvas bag. They didn't knock. They hovered, eyes scanning, and then the one with the bag crouched and tucked something behind the planter. He's planting something. I whispered. Watch this, Erin said, thumb on her phone. The porch erupted in white. Our doorbell speaker clicked on with her army instructive voice. Calm, amplified, undeniable. You are on private property. You are being recorded. Per Willow Ridge Estates Covenant 2.3d, inspections occur during daylight. The object you placed by the planter has been recorded. The police will be notified in 10 seconds. It was a bluff. It worked like a cannon. The guys grabbed the bag back like it was hot and scrambled to the van, which, by the way, Erin's hidden bush camera caught beautifully, including the plate. She traced the plate to a shell company that won the landscaping contract for the neighborhood, a contract Dana pushed through with the same smile she used in the principal's office. Erin didn't smack the table. She smiled. They're predictable, she said, voice low and pleased. Time to build the fence. We built a digital fence, not the kind you staple to posts, but the kind that makes a liar run out of road. We added cameras that didn't announce themselves, one disguised as a birdhouse, one peeking from a holly bush, one pinhole high in the garage with a perfect view of the street. Erin hardwired a dash cam into her sedan that faced the Whitfield's driveway 24/7. She bought a small drone, learned it's quiet, started a dawn routine. Up to 400 feet, slow orbit, public spaces only, no backyard peeking, just the commons, the entrances, the pattern of how the HOA actually worked when it thought nobody watched. I became the boring hero. I logged everything. It sounds dull. It was, until it wasn't. We caught the landscaping crew, Dana's brother-in-law's company, spending a cool 15 minutes on what the budget said was 3 hours of work. We watched the compliance guys ignore the broken shutters at board members' houses and zoom in on a kid's sidewalk chalked 2 streets over. We stitched the night they came to our porch into 3 angles, doorbell, bush cam, dash cam, and dropped it into the folder with timestamps and captions. We weren't collecting videos. We were writing a story the way a prosecutor likes to read it. But facts are lonely until people stand next to them. So we knocked on Hank's door. Hank Carter, retired Marine, hands like vices, heart like a church bell. He'd watched the bad incident from his front window and gave us a nod that day that meant more than any speech. I told him everything. He wiped a chisel, considered it like he was thinking about how edges work, and said, "She's been shaking this place down for years. I got fined $200 for flying a flag on a pole an inch too wide. I paid because I didn't have the fight. You do. What do you need?" "Your eyes," I said. "Your voice." He grunted. "You got M." Across the street, Emily Parker, 5th grade teacher, organizer of the block party, allergic to drama, listened and went pale when we got to how the principal folded. "It's always sports with her," Emily said. "Every fundraiser, every vote. The arts teachers buy paint with their own money while the scoreboard gets a sponsorship plaque." She knew parents who'd been iced out when they crossed Dana. She knew which kids talked. She knew whispers and where they started. She became our radio. Emily told us the varsity boys had a group chat called The Dugout. That's where the bragging lives. We couldn't walk into it. But one of the boys who'd been with Chase, a kid named Josh, had the look of a follower, the kind of kid who is tougher in a crowd and queasy alone. Emily tapped a former student she trusted, Kayla, sharp, steady, to slide a thought into Josh's ear. Not an accusation. A warning. Tyler throws people under the bus, she said. If I were you, I'd keep proof of what really happened. 48 hours later, Emily texted Aaron, check your email. An anonymous address had dumped a treasure, screenshots of the dugout chat from the afternoon June fell. Chase was there in all caps, the kind of swagger that only shows up when you're a star in the show inside your own head. LOL, that little girl went down like a sack of potatoes, one message said. Someone asked if he was worried. Nah, he typed. My mom handled it. She owns the principal, and she's making that family's life hell with the HOA. They'll be gone in a month. I felt something cold and clean settle in me. Not rage. Focus. Aaron wasn't even reading his words anymore. She had zoomed in on the participant list. There, she said, tapping a name, Evan Brooks. Son of Alan Brooks, the HOA treasurer. Alan, quiet, tidy, always looked like he wanted to apologize for being at the meeting, sat next to Dana every month and read numbers like they weren't stolen. We went to Alan's house with a thin folder, one screenshot with his kid's name in the chat, and the draft police report listing all 4 boys as involved parties. He opened the door with the posture of a man who's been braced for years. We didn't threaten. Aaron laid it out like a surgeon explaining a cut, gentle voice, sharp instrument. We don't want to ruin your son, she said. He made a bad choice. But the person who orchestrated this is not an 8th grader. Help us stop her, and we will tell the truth without hunting your family for sport. Alan stared at the paper, at his son's name, at Chase's brag about Dana owning people. Something in him sagged, and then, maybe for the first time, something stood up. He left the room and came back with a flash drive and a thin black laptop. I have a personal copy of the real ledger, he said, voice shaking. Not the one she shows. This one has everything. Kickbacks, sham bids, charges to the HOA card for everything. He whispered the word like it tasted bad. If I'm going down, it'll be for telling the truth, not for helping her lie. Aaron spent a day lost in numbers and came back with a map. Money for a community garden revitalization that exists only in minutes. Payments to a paving company owned by Dana's cousin for emergency resurfacing that never happened. Spa days and a Caribbean trip coded as board development. 5 years. 6 figures. I built a presentation because you fight on the battlefield you've got, and ours had a projector. I started with June's scraped face. Then the phony violations with our time-stamped rebuttals next to them. Then Chase's confession, blown up so the room would have to look right at the way arrogance spells itself. Then Aaron's charts, arrows, dates, accounts, all of it neat and merciless. Aaron called an old contact who works white-collar crime for the state. She didn't sell a story. She sent a file, encrypted, and said, read it. By afternoon, a judge signed paper we never thought we'd see in a neighborhood where the biggest argument used to be mailbox height. The HOA meeting was standing room only. Usually it's 10 people and a sadness. That night it was the whole of Willow Ridge. People who'd been fined for a wind chime. People who'd been told their toddler's chalk violated harmony. Dana was high on it, glowing. She sailed through the minutes, the fake treasurer's report, the speech about standards. When she got to homeowner comments, Aaron stood. She didn't waste anyone's time. For weeks, my family has been harassed by this board's president, she said, steady as a metronome, and clicked. June's face filled the screen. The room gasped in one voice. Click. The night the compliance guys tried to plant something. Click. Chase's text. My mom handled it. Click. The line of money from our dues to her cousin's company to a consulting fee that landed in Dana's personal account 2 days later. You could feel the room heat with recognition, not just of the facts, but of something unspoken breaking free. Dana grabbed the gavel and banged like she could crack reality back into shape. This is slander. This meeting is adjourned. A voice from the back said, Not yet, ma'am. 2 state troopers and a detective in a suit walked down the aisle like patients in shoe leather. The detective read, calm and polite as a Sunday. Dana Whitfield, you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Someone in the crowd dropped their coffee. Somebody else whispered, finally. Chase stood up like he might do something heroic and ran into a trooper who didn't move. Chase Whitfield, the detective said without looking at him. We have a warrant for assault. Hands behind your back. That metal ratchet sound. The one handcuffs make when they decide for you. Clicked through the room. Dana looked at me when they turned her toward the door. For the first time, her face didn't say I own this place. It said I am in it, like everyone else. What happens after the movie ends is almost always small. The board dissolved that night, not by a coup, but by a vote. Hank agreed to be interim president with the sigh of a man who thought he'd retired from nonsense. Emily took minutes like she was writing a new constitution. Alan stayed on to untangle the accounts and return what could be returned. Chase pleaded to a lesser charge, did community service, sat in a room with a counselor who told him to look at the person he hurt and say it out loud. Dana sold her house in 2 weeks and vanished into rumor like smoke. The neighborhood got quiet in the good way. I took June back to the gravel lane she'd been scared of and watched her laugh again. Erin left most of the cameras in a storage tub and kept the doorbell on. Good fences make good neighbors, she said, and for once it didn't sound like a warning. A few months later, the new board sent us a check refunding all the bogus fines. It wasn't a fortune, but it was an apology you could take to the bank. I used it to hire the most absurdly precise lawn service in the county for 1 day. They showed up with lasers, literally, and mowed our yard to a crisp, uniform 2.9 inches. I took a photo and emailed the invoice to the board with the subject, "For your records." Hank called 10 minutes later laughing so hard he wheezed. "Petty," he said, "and absolutely perfect. People ask me if we won. I say we got our house back. We got our Tuesdays back. We learned that getting loud isn't the same as getting even, that patience backed by receipts can be louder than a bullhorn. And if you're asking what happened to Chase, I don't know if a kid changes because of a court order, but I do know he volunteers now at the Little League fields and shows up early to put bases out. Maybe that's punishment. Maybe it's practice at being a person. I think about Dana sometimes, not with glee, but with curiosity. People like her don't start as villains. They start as helpful. Then they notice doors open when they say certain things, and one day they forget the doors aren't theirs. Power is a mirror that only shows you your good side unless somebody holds up a second mirror. We held one up. All right, if you made it this far with me, what would you have done differently? Where's the line between protecting your kid and burning the place down? Do HOAs help neighborhoods or just give petty people a badge? Drop your take in the comments. Argue it out. Tell me if we went too far or not far enough. And if you've got your own HOA war story, I'm all ears. Like, share, subscribe if this kind of real-life mess interests you. And hey, keep your grass at 2.9 inches because you want to, not because someone like Dana tells you to.